TBI Butterflies, Healing Conversations.
Welcome to TBI Butterflies, Healing Conversations. This is a traumatic brain injury podcast for brain injury survivors, for caregivers and friends and family and doctors, medical professionals, you name it. This is a place where you get to come and hear the raw, real depth of wisdom and experience from our experiences. My name is Lolly. I have been doing TBI survivor experience videos online for several years now, and I can no longer deny my impact. I have to acknowledge the reflection of the mirror being given back to me and the daily comments I receive in how are you saying what I haven't been able to say in 20 years? Thank you for helping me understand my daughter or my son or my husband, whoever that is. And I am honored and I am grateful that my vulnerability is being well received, and the messages and the wisdom that I'm sharing is opening eyes and transforming lives. So here we are on the first ever episode of TBI Butterflies, Healing Conversations. I will have other survivors and people who I feel would be wonderful guests to contribute some information of substance as we continue to move forward in this podcast. But first, let me introduce you to myself. Let me share my story. And then we will get into some of the other topics moving down the line. So I endured 4 traumatic brain injuries in 16 months starting in 2018. My birthday is January 28th, 1983, and I got drunk on my birthday. Not real drunk, but I definitely got drunk, and I was a foot over to the right when I thought I was a foot over to the left, and I had this deep desire to dance on the skee ball machine. Yes, you can laugh with me. I needed to dance on the skee ball machine. And so what I did is I made a very quick athletic move, turning in a quick 180, and I smashed my face into a countertop bar that was right next to that skee ball machine. I broke my nose, I split my forehead open, and it was like zing! And I bounced off, and I looked around, and nobody saw. So what did I do? I got on that skee ball machine, and I continued my mission, my friends. So I'm up there dancing, and you know when you cut something so deep, it takes a minute to bleed? It was like the movie The Sixth Sense, where all of a sudden just blood just started gushing down my face. And at that moment, my ex-wife looked up at me, and she saw me, and she goes, "You, down, now." And when that happened, I got really mad with everybody, like really mad. And I wouldn't let anyone take me to the hospital or anything like that. And it was the beginning of really kind of seeing the anger, the rage, right? And so I got home, and she did a wonderful job taking care of me. You know, we had a big bathtub, jacuzzi tub, and she put a bunch of blankets in there and just let me sleep in there after I took my shower. Which, funny story is, as I was so messed up from hitting my head, that I was laying on the floor in the shower going, and I'm swimming, as I'm like I'm a tadpole swimming in the water. Like, it was ridiculous, but I just thought I'd give you a little humor. So yeah, she kept an eye on me all night, and I'm grateful for that, but it really was the beginning of a major shift in my personality. It was the beginning of a major shift in who I was, and that put me on a cloud. I call it the cloud for a week, where I couldn't think through my own thoughts, where I didn't know what was really happening to me, and I just had this glassy stare in my eyes, like I wasn't present, and I was emotionally volatile as well. And so after about a week, that started to dissipate, and fast forward 20 days later, my ex-wife was driving, and I was in the car, and she got rear-ended. It wasn't a major accident, but it was enough to give me whiplash that gave me a second brain injury within the 20 days, which also put me back on the cloud. Now, like everybody else in this world, I was taught to dismiss concussions, that they weren't anything major and anything like that. But what I have learned is there is no mild traumatic brain injury. There is no mild brain injury. They just use that as a classification. That doesn't mean it's mild. And so I'm moving through life thinking I'm normal, but I'm not. My therapist looks at me and goes, Lolly, why have you not gone to the doctor? You have a brain injury. And I said, because it's just a concussion. She goes, well, I see it in you, and I'm asking you to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor, and that's when I failed their tests. She gave me a test that I had to look at the clock and then draw the hands on the clock without looking at it, and I couldn't remember where the hands were. Then I answered their depression questions, and I was severely depressed. That was a big moment for me when I recognized I lost joy. I was this high energy, positive, happy workaholic. I was that guy that was so happy, I just annoyed people, right? And so, to not have energy was very hard for me. To not feel like I was happy was a big realization for me. And so when I realized that, it really opened my eyes to that I had a brain injury. What I recognized was that I was going to my job upset and angry and irritable. I wasn't laughing at jokes that I normally was laughing at. And I recognized that I wasn't being my normal, intentional self where I slow things down and I pause and so that I can respond instead of react. And I was doing that at home. And so the doctor put me on a medication because at that time I just subscribed to Western medicine and, they actually care about me and they'll give me the medications that I need. But that wasn't what I experienced. They didn't really care about me and they were just guessing and changing the chemicals in my brain. They were prescribing medications that the side effects were my symptoms. Well, how can I answer if the medication's helping me? If the side effects are my symptoms? And my symptoms are cognitive, or they're because of my brain, they're psychological. So I digress. They put me on a medication called Depakote. It gave me what I call the Depakote halo ring, where I had this ring around my vision. And, I had my first ever suicidal ideation on that medication. And I almost flipped a car, actually. I was driving a vehicle back from a long trip, and I just got really depressed and sad and just didn't want to be here anymore. So I almost flipped the car going 80 miles an hour. And I'm grateful I pulled off to the side of the road and just cried and was honest with myself. And I said, we're coming off of this medication. So I went to my doctor and I asked to be off my medication. Well, that was a nightmare. Medications are a nightmare to go on and off of, especially for me. I am an HSP, which is what's called a highly sensitive person. So when I take medications, I feel them more intensely than most people. So they had to start titrating me off very, very slowly. Actually, with a syringe, I had to start really microdosing and coming off of it. And I was almost off of it, and we were 8 months later, and I call this the 8-month curse because there's 8 months to this, and then the next one's 8 months later. I was running at my job as a valet manager at a private country club. And that was a very life-changing day. A member came in, it was September 29th, 2018. He dropped his wife off to go work out at the gym. They had a Lexus. She kept the keys. I heard the car go beep, beep, so I asked her, do you have the keys to the car? And she realized that she did, and she goes, oh shit, stop him. So I bolted as he's driving off, trying to leave the parking lot to go run his errands. And I chase him down, just trying to be a nice, good employee and person. And they had done a bunch of construction in the parking lot. And what had happened is were at the tail end of it. And they totally remodeled the entire parking lot. And I had been running through this parking lot for 13 years at this point. So I knew it like the back of my hand, only now I did not. And my eyes were down, deciding whether or not I was going to go down the main driveway where there was now a big garden area I needed to run around, or the direct route, which took me down a 3-foot drop of kind of like a ramp or a wash in between two parking spots. What I had forgotten was that there was a white nylon clothesline rope up in the middle of those two parking spots, and I chose that route. So by the time I lifted my eyes up, I had was basically on top of that rope, and I made one move that saved my life. I threw my left arm up to try to hit the rope up. I did not make it in time. I leaned back to the right and turned my head to the right. That saved my life. That rope hit me at the top of my collarbone, dragged half of my esophagus, dragged half of my left of my neck, dragged up from the bottom of the collarbone, up the neck to the jawline, grabbed me at the left jaw. The body kept going at least 15 miles an hour. I'm very fast. And the head stayed. And it tried to come off my body. And I hit the ground, and I had memory of hitting the rope. And I said, God damn, that hurt. And I tried to push myself back up, but I couldn't. I didn't know until years later when I relived my death 3.5 years later when my brainstem started to wake back up and I started to have what looked like non-epileptic seizures, but was really my body clearing physical body trauma through somatic trauma experience. That's a whole other topic and a whole other episode. And I have videos posted online of when I actually relived my death. I didn't know I died that day until I started going through these PTSD episodes where my body and my brain was literally putting itself back together, where my body started to move with great intention beyond my knowledge, and I just surrendered and I flowed. I did not know that any of this had happened. Like, I had died. I didn't know that I was paralyzed from my arms down. And so I went to go push myself up, and I couldn't. And I put my head on top of my forearms, and in that moment, my head turned to the right. And when it turned to the right, I died. Not clinically, but I remember it vividly. And when my head turned to the right, I looked to the right, and it was the hottest, brightest light I'd ever seen and felt. And I looked to my left, and it was the darkest dark, coldest cold I had ever seen and felt. And I did that 3 times for the 6 seconds. I have this whole accident on video. I have the recording of my death when I relive it on video. All of this is documented. And the crazy thing is I didn't feel sense of humanity. I just felt comfort and peace, like I was home. Like, I was home. And I walked through this 1,000,007 times in my head because, try being me and reliving that. And I was next to a star, like our sun. It would be the hottest, brightest light I'd ever seen and felt to my right. And to my left would be the dark, cold vastness of space. The darkest dark, the coldest cold. I just returned to universal energy, and it was so peaceful. And so all of that came back to me 3.5 years later. So I pushed myself back up when I came back because my central nervous system reset, and I had no memory of the accident for a split second. So I literally pushed myself back up when I came back to my body, and I jumped up with one shoe on, and I tried to run like I was going to go finish getting this guy. And I took 2 steps, and my head swung like it wasn't on my neck appropriately, and I felt very dizzy, and I almost fell to the ground. Well, I went to the urgent care, and they didn't even want to scan my brain or my neck. Workman's comp, right? Not a big deal. We're going to do everything we can to avoid it, and trust me, they did. And so the 4th brain injury was I towed a boat to International Falls, Minnesota with my assistant supervisor at the time. It was a 40-hour tandem drive, which means that one of us drove while the other one slept. And we get there 40 hours. It's a very long drive. We're both very tired. He wanted to throw some darts and have a drink. I said, sure, let's go. And so I didn't drink, but I did throw darts. We walked in, and we were the hot chicks. 2 chicks walked up and immediately hit on us. I mean, they were so inappropriate. I even got offered a blowjob in the bathroom, which I denied because my response was, I was married at the time. I love my wife. I love my life. Now, it did take us a minute to get rid of them. And we did, and once we did, 2 girls from Canada walked in because International Falls, Minnesota is on the border of Canada. It's about a 2-mile wide town or so. And they made eye contact with me, and I looked at my buddy, and I said, here it comes again. So they did, and they came and hit on us, and we drew a boundary, and they honored it, and they were respectful, so they played darts with us, and we continued to have a good night. At the end of the night, one of the girls from the first group came up and said, well, we're leaving now. Basically insinuating, are you coming with me? And so I was polite and respectful, and I just said, it was nice to meet you. Have a good night. She did not take the rejection well, apparently. I did not know that at the time. She walked out, told some guy who I never saw all night, who was 5'9", 250 pounds, that I had sexually assaulted her. He walked in, tapped me on the shoulder while I was throwing darts. Not a word was said, and I never saw it coming. He sucker punched me in the face, broke my nose, and dented my forehead. I hit the ground so quick, my nose took me off my feet. Hit the ground, my nose was gushing, so I jumped up, pulled my phone out, and immediately called 911 instead of engaging, and I ran to the bathroom. I told 911 that I could hear the bartender trying to kick my friend out of the bar, like we were the ones who had done something wrong. That I had only been in this town for about 4 to 6 hours, and I didn't talk to very much, really anybody, especially whoever just assaulted me, and that I was not going to step out of that bar without a police escort because I didn't know what was waiting for me. And I am so grateful I had that wherewithal to make sure I did not get jumped because they were waiting for me. So the police arrested the guy. It was a misdemeanor in Minnesota, unfortunately. And the girls are out there trying to say the same story, that I sexually assaulted him. Or her. The Canadians vouched for me. I read it in the police report. And I spoke to the Canadians afterwards. So I'm grateful that they stood up and they spoke. My ex-wife did not believe that it didn't have anything to do with other than a woman that I was causing problems with. So you can imagine the fights that were happening afterwards, which was really fun. Well, I had a brain injury. And so that was my 4th traumatic brain injury in 16 months. I have done well over 1,000 therapies. I was put into full-time work and full-time therapies where I was basically working full-time as a valet manager with 10 employees underneath me, being pulled in 7 different directions, while testing with being moderately to severely cognitively impaired in being able to process information, problem solve, memory recall, memory retention, and word finding. I failed her tests in cognitive therapy so terribly bad, but I was able to rewire and regain, and neuroplasticity is a real thing. And I've done hyperbaric oxygen therapy and sensory deprivation salt floats and red light therapy and neurofeedback and so much more, that has vision therapy and craniosacral therapy. Oh man, I could just keep going. I've done so many therapies that I've just gained the wisdom and the knowledge because I have to learn it in order to implement it, in order to improve my quality of life, in order to heal, to recover, so that I do have a better quality of life. And I've been taking my experiences and the wisdom and the knowledge of what I've learned from all of this, and I've been sharing it with you all in these TBI survivor experiences. I would have never imagined I would have had this impact. So I must honor it. And because of that, I recognize that I have done over 100 plus videos. I have created a Patreon where I have posted my videos categorized by topics because those videos are lost in my social media feeds. I have put TBI memes in there. I'm putting this podcast in there. I'm going to be putting more resources in there, some of the care that I've done and how to contact them, or what that actually entails and how it helped me. Actual real resources that are boots on the ground to try to help survivors, caregivers, family, friends, etc., to help really connect you with better resources. Because the medical knowledge saves lives, but it's the survivor experience that is the giant question mark that everybody's so confused about. So I'm here to help guide you, to give you a glimpse into our reality. And it can only ever be a glimpse, no matter how much I describe to you, no matter how articulate, no matter how much of a portrait or landscape I paint for you of what it's like. You will never walk in our shoes. They say walk a mile in our shoes. I say spend 30 seconds in my brain. You will be so overstimulated and so overwhelmed, you will not make it. I have a line in a poem that even the Mad Hatter is The Mad Hatter is reordering more mushroom tea because even he is trying to escape. We have to grieve the death of the old us. I fought myself in resistance for years until I learned to embrace and accept myself. To embrace my brain injury as a part of me and not separate than I. It is not the villain. It is not the captor. It is not the thief, and it is not the tornado that destroyed my life. It may feel like that, but it is still a part of me. And that is just an experience in which I've went through that I am supposed to learn and grow and become stronger through it. And it's so hard to imagine becoming stronger through it. Man, I would have never imagined that my light would be brighter, that I would be wiser. I thought this was the end of me. It clearly is not. So stay tuned as we continue to grow, as we continue to learn, and are able to support our survivors, and as survivors, we are better able to support ourselves. So come along with me on this journey. Be one of the many TBI butterflies out there in need of healing conversations. I'm here, my friends, and I'm not going anywhere. I've got a lot to share with you, and this is only the beginning. Until the next episode, be well.